From LPM,
Louisville Public Media.
Support comes from Vision Zero. On foot or behind the wheel, safety is a shared responsibility. And Vision Zero Louisville believes 0 roadway fatalities is the only acceptable amount. Their mission is to create safe roads by design, engineering solutions, and education. More information at visionzerolouisville.org.
Welcome to It Takes Energy, presented by Energy Transfer, where we talk all things oil and natural gas. Oil and gas drive our economy, ensure our country's security, and open pathways to brighter futures. What do you know about oil and natural gas? You likely associate them with running your car or heating your home. But these two natural resources fuel so much more than that. More than 6,000 consumer products that we rely on every day are made using oil and gas. Before you even step out the door in the morning, you've already used more products made possible because of oil and gas than you realize. From the toothpaste you brush your teeth with, the soap you washed your face with, and the sheets you slept on. Not to mention your makeup, contact lenses, clothes, and shoes. Oil and gas are vital parts of all these products and so many more. Look around, and you'll see the essential role oil and gas plays in our lives. Our world needs oil and gas, and people rely on us to deliver it. To learn more, visit energytransfer.com.
Welcome to On Track. I'm Aisha Jaffer. Today we're checking in on what's happening in southern Indiana. From local governance and criminal investigations to nature trails and community identity, the stories unfolding in this corner of the state help paint a fuller picture of our life in our region. To help us dive in, we're joined by LPM Southern Indiana reporter Aprile Rickert. Aprile is from New Albany and brings years of experience covering the region, from her time reporting on crime and courts at the News and Tribune to her current role tracking everything from small-town politics to everyday community life. Aprile, welcome to On Track.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I want to jump right into a few of the key stories unfolding in southern Indiana right now, starting with one that's been making headlines for a while. A couple of years ago, Indiana State Police launched a criminal investigation into former Clark County Sheriff Jamie Knoll. Since then, the case has grown to include family and associates. It's a complex and ongoing story. Can you walk us through what has happened so far?
Sure, yeah. It's. I think it was June 2 years ago that Indiana State Police first started investigating. And in some ways, the investigation is kind of wrapping up. Some of the ends are getting tied up. Jamie Knoll himself pleaded guilty and was sentenced last August. He's serving a 15-year sentence. He'll probably serve that includes probation. He'll probably serve about 9 years of that. His daughter pleaded guilty earlier this year to theft and tax evasion. She's already been released from custody, so her case is done. She's just serving probation now. His wife pleaded guilty in May, and the judge has taken that under advisement, so he's going to consider whether to accept her plea. If so, she'll probably serve around 13 months, I believe. There are a few other people, 2 former Clark County council members. They each have one charge. One person of those 2 has pleaded guilty, and then there's a former Scott County sheriff. He got caught up in the investigation. His charge is actually in Scott County, though.
So Jamie Knoll is the bulk of that sentence, and it seems like it spanned deep. It was really like with family and Misty, like you said, that was just, his wife was just last month. So is there anything else that we should watch out for? I know you said it's kind of closing ends, but there's just a few, it sounds like there's just a few outlying cases.
There are a few outlying cases. Of the 6 people charged right now, 4 have pleaded guilty. Of course, the judge hasn't accepted his wife Misty's plea yet. There are also other cases involving just some civil cases involving restitution, and with New Chapel EMS, which he previously operated. They're involved in a case. There's another case. His brother's family filed a lawsuit alleging that he defrauded them out of part of their inheritance, or that he didn't give them their full inheritance when their father died. So there are a few other things out there that are going to continue for a little while. And
just to rewind, just for those who aren't familiar, what is the core of the crime that was done?
Well, it encompassed quite a lot of things. Jamie Knoll was sheriff. He was the Clark County Republican Party leader. None of his charges are related to that. And he also operated New Chapel EMS. So he's accused that during the course of this investigation, there were dozens and dozens of warrants that would just drop every week, and we would find out what police were looking into. They were looking into all kinds of threads, and that's how the former sheriff of Scott County got caught up in this, in his own charge for tax evasion. But Jamie Knowles charged with theft and tax evasion, among some other things. He's accused of stealing from New Chapel over multiple years. He's accused of stealing from the sheriff's office. I mean, he's pleaded guilty to charges. So,
How did his family get involved, or was it just like by association, or?
well, their charges, his daughter and wife's charges, are for using a credit card that belonged to New Chapel for personal items, and then so that's the theft charges. Those are the theft charges, and then the tax evasion comes from like, this was income that you didn't claim on your income taxes. Now, while they've both pleaded guilty, and when Jamie Knoll pleaded guilty last year, it kind of seemed like he was kind of taking the blame for some of that. He said in his statement in court that this was, he apologized to his family. He said, I did the family's taxes. I did I handled the finances, is I think what he said, and that my family didn't know how I operated this business. So I don't know if he was saying they didn't do anything at all. It kind of seemed like he was taking some blame for them.
And then the associates, is it a similar thing?
The two former Clark County council members, they're both charged with conflict of interest. So they were on the county council, and they voted to approve funding for New Chapel EMS. New Chapel previously served Clark and Floyd County, all of Clark, most of Floyd County. So they had contracts with the counties on that. And these two had personal relationships with Jamie Knoll. Police say one man, John Miller, accepted gifts, travel, meals from Knoll at the same time that he did this. His attorney is appealing his charge right now. And then the woman, Brittany Free, she was in a relationship with Jamie Knoll at some point, and police say she received money and other things from him.
Like a mistress?
Yeah.
Okay.
They have a child together.
Okay. And then how did anyone kind of sniff out that this was happening?
It first started in a little bit of a different way. The current sheriff, Scotty Maples, got Indiana State Police involved, I think around 2 years ago, because he started seeing some things that pointed to, I think it was quoted, potential illegal activity in the sheriff's office during Jamie Knoll's term, which was right before his. Jamie was sheriff from 2015 to 2022, and then Scotty Maples was elected sheriff. So police started looking into this. Some of the initial things they found were they said that Jamie Knoll was using sheriff's office employees to work on his own personal properties on county time and things like that. But they just kept digging and digging and finding more things and following the money, and it turned into a really extensive investigation that may be kind of tied up, but I mean, I don't think that they're going to turn something down if something else comes up.
Right. Okay. Well, another hot topic in Indiana right now is the proposed Silver Creek School District referendum. Can you walk us through what this proposal entailed and why it was introduced?
Sure. That Silver Creek School Corporation presented to the voters. This is not a normal election year in southern Indiana, but in early May, people living within the Silver Creek district had the opportunity to vote on a roughly $63 million referendum. That was to ramp up a lot of things at the Silver Creek schools. They have, I believe they have a primary, elementary, middle, and high school, and this would go to a lot of improvements at the lower schools for the most part, including, I think, a new elementary school. It would raise taxes for residential and business properties in the district too, and voters did not want that.
Right. But what was the reason was because they needed facilities, overcrowding, or was there like things about like the facility infrastructure that they needed?
Some things were a little bit more than others. Like there were minimal improvements needed at the high school because they'd already done a lot of improvements there. They wanted to address some capacity issues now and into the future as the community continues to grow.
And so would you remember what the tax percentage was that they were hoping to raise?
I can check.
That's okay. I was just curious if you knew. But so people were not in favor of that. So what essentially was the outcome?
When I talked to a school administrator before Election Day, I think he didn't know how it was going to go at the time, but he said, we'll move along however this goes. As of early June, I didn't really know what their plans were as far as moving forward, but I'm sure that that's something that we'll continue to follow.
Or, what was the outcome of the vote for the referendum?
People were against it.
Against it. So right now you're saying they're not exactly sure what they're going to do, but they're going to try to move forward in some way, but they don't necessarily have a plan yet?
I don't know their plan. When I talked with an administrator the day before the election, just ahead of it, he said that they'll move forward. They'll make things work, however that shakes out.
Cool.
And I just don't know what their plans are right now.
All right. Yeah, it's very new, right? This just happened. So heading over to Floyd County now, there's been a development in the case involving New Albany and the Providence Mill Dam tied to the 2022 drowning of 14-year-old A.J. Edwards Jr. A judge recently denied a motion for default judgment. Can you tell us what was sort of happening there and what that means, where things stand?
Mm-hmm. This is one of a few cases that have been some have closed. This is one of a few open cases right now involving this dam. This has been a controversial spot for a few years. So just going back to 2021, a contractor for River Heritage Conservancy got a permit to take out this dam. It's part of their plans for Origin Park. This is a 400-acre park, nature park in southern Indiana that's controlled by River Heritage Conservancy. It's on Silver Creek, the dam, which is between Clark County and New Albany, Clarksville and New Albany, this part of it. The city of New Albany, the mayor, they didn't want the dam taken out. So they've challenged that. And a few months ago, not a few months ago, last year, 2 months after A.J. Edwards drowned at the dam, the mayor had rocks. He declared a state of emergency and had rocks placed to cover up. With low-head dams, they can be very dangerous depending on the water current, or the water levels. So it can create a very dangerous current just beyond the dam that even strong swimmers can get caught up in. So he had rocks placed there. A few state and federal agencies say he wasn't allowed to do that. He didn't have permitting for it. So that's what this case is. So the judge denied default judgment. A few months ago, Indiana DNR asked her for default judgment, saying that the city wasn't participating in the case and discovery in the case meaningfully. An attorney for the city denies that, says that they haven't been given a great opportunity for that, saying that the other side is treating it like a one-way street. So I think the judge is just trying to move the case forward, and we're going to see what's going to happen with that coming soon.
Well, great. Thank you so much, April. We'll be back in just a minute. You're listening to On Track. You're listening to On Track. I'm Aisha Jaffer, and we're checking in with LPM Southern Indiana reporter Aprile Rickert for the latest stories from this region. April, another recent headline coming up in Indiana is on the Clark County Jail, which has recently begun housing individuals detained by ICE or the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Can you provide an overview of this new arrangement and what prompted this partnership?
Sure. So in April, we learned that the Clark County Jail had started, they had become a housing facility for people detained by ICE. So in this agreement, which is, I think it's a rider on an agreement for, they already held federal inmates in some cases for the federal government. So this is just kind of an addition to that. They get a certain amount of money per day, per person that they hold. They don't do any other enforcement. They're not out on the street trying to find people who might, based on their status or things like that. They're not acting as ICE agents, I should say.
Right.
So in April, I think the first group of people, it was a little over 40 people at first, and they're housed at the facility. And I just learned recently, I learned in early June, that between April and June, they'd had a total of 139 people there at some point through this new program. And this also this also translated at least in April to around a little over $80,000 that goes to the county. This money doesn't go to the jail or the sheriff's office, but it's money that's going directly to Clark County, I believe the general fund, and that's expected to go up. It could be a few $1,000,000 a year. The sheriff has said early on he wanted to start with holding up to 75 people at a time. I think he's gone over that a little bit sometimes when he had space, but he wanted to aim that up to 150 if possible at one time. And he said before he wants to do that because, he wants to be able to help the federal government when he can. And they asked, the U.S. Marshals Service put out the call to at least this sheriff's office asking if they had space and were willing to help. And that comes at a time when I think nationally there have been efforts, ramped up efforts in immigration.
Right. So what are some of the concerns or support you've observed from local residents and organizations with this arrangement?
Sure. Well, some people have voiced concerns. They've pointed to situations or concerns in other areas where people may be not receiving due process, reports that they've seen. There was, I believe it was in May, there was not a big, but a protest outside the Clark County Courthouse with maybe a dozen people or so. I'm not quite sure how many people were there, just protesting the fact that those folks were in there.
And what implications might this partnership have for the Clark County community, both in terms of local law enforcement operations and just like the broader social impact?
Well, like I said, some of the residents, some of the community members are opposed to this. Of course, there are plenty who are in favor of it, and they think that people should not be. If people have violated immigration, that they should have their due process or have maybe be detained or.
So you have some in favor and some against within the community. And it sounds like from their perspective, in terms of local law enforcement operations, that it's not disrupting anything for their process.
As far as local law enforcement?
Yeah, yes.
Well, there are a few different police departments here. This the sheriff's office itself, like they're not acting as ICE agents. What they and I don't know that any other agency in the area is either. I don't believe there's any partnership for that right now.
Okay.
That said, this has happened for a long time where if someone was already in Clark County Jail or another jail for that matter, picked up on another charge and maybe the sheriff's office believed that they should contact ICE about this, then they would. That doesn't mean they were acting as ICE agents. Then ICE would have a certain period of time, I don't know if it's 48 hours, to make a determination on whether to hold them or not. What this means, though, is that this is a designated ICE detention facility. And as of the website, Department of Homeland Security website recently, there were only 3 county jails in the state doing that. There could be more, but they weren't listed on the website yet.
Okay, so let's switch gears a bit because while Southern Indiana has its share of serious headlines, it's also home to some positive community, beautiful places, and fun things to do. And I know you love the outdoors, right? Mm-hmm. So what are some of your favorite ways to enjoy the area or spots folks might want to check out this summer in Southern Indiana?
Yeah, I think we have some really cool spots. And I am one of those people, I don't like the cold. I will go out in it, but I don't appreciate it. So this is my time of year, spring, summer, fall. Love it. We have, this might be a spot that people might know more about, but if you don't, you should go. It's the Falls of the Ohio State Park. That's just across the river from Louisville and Clarksville. It's right next to Ashland Park, which is arguably has the best view of the downtown Louisville skyline. So the Falls of the Ohio is right next to that. They're both on the Ohio River Greenway, this recreational trail. The Falls of the Ohio has fossil beds. When the water is low enough, you can actually walk down onto fossil beds from, I believe, the Devonian period. And just people go there to fish, to hike, just to like get a different kind of scenery.
And there's like, isn't there like, I visited myself because I was curious, and isn't there like a wild kayak like eddy situation? If you are one of those heart pumping like sports people, there's some wild water there too.
Oh yeah, because it's just below. I guess the locks. The water can be kind of intense right there.
What about trails, like hiking trails, parks like that to check out?
So one of my favorite spots is Charlestown State Park. That's about 20 miles or 20 minutes away from, I guess, downtown Jeffersonville. That's where I am. It's about 20 miles away from there, 20 minutes away from there. And it's not a super packed park. Sometimes, I mean, maybe on a holiday it is, but I think that people are still learning about it. Maybe they'll know more about it now, but it's one of my favorite spots. Some of the trails go right along the river. The two trails that I usually go on are not along the river just because they're a little bit more rigorous. But, I mean, there's something there for different people. There's a paved area. There's picnic areas right on the river, which is very calm. There's even an amusement park from, I believe, the late 1800s, early 1900s, where you can see some of the remaining structures there. It's called Rose Island.
And it's abandoned, right? It's not. Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's not. And this is not like old Ferris wheels. It's like an old amusement park from that time period.
You know, someone recently was telling me about an active amusement park that I heard about, and you can tell me if this is something you enjoy. Holiday Amusement Park? Is this something you're familiar
Holiday
with?
World?
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
Oh, yeah. That's fun. I haven't been there in a while, but yeah, that's a fun spot.
Is it a holiday-themed amusement park?
It's in Santa Claus, Indiana.
Oh, amazing. What other like summer things are you looking forward to? Maybe like on the line of events and festivals.
Well, so in southern Indiana, most of the communities, we have different cities and towns here. Most have their own little flavor of what to do. So like we'll have like bands playing on the river. We have usually there are farmers markets in each community. Just lots of things like that. This
is my indulgent question, but what is the most like Hallmark style town in southern Indiana?
Oh gosh. I don't want to make anybody mad.
Top 3. Well, that just tells me that there's a lot. So there's a lot to explore in southern Indiana. Now, I want to talk about the southern Indiana beat. Like, you've lived on both sides of the river. Mm-hmm. How has that shaped your understanding of this region?
Yeah, it's been a really unique opportunity. So I grew up in New Albany. I lived in Louisville for almost 2 decades at the same time while partially working in southern Indiana. My family's on both sides of the river. So I've always been comfortable in Louisville and southern Indiana. So it's given me a pretty unique, I guess, way to look at things. I think it's really cool. And there's this saying in Louisville, and I don't know how many degrees of separation it is, like everyone kind of knows everyone. And in southern Indiana, it's even smaller. Like you can probably run into an elementary school teacher volunteering at a food pantry, or something like that. If you go to Harvest Homecoming, which is like one of the biggest festivals in the state, that's in New Albany, you're going to run into everybody you ever knew. So there's a lot of like small community feel, and these are different, distinct cities and towns, but all part of the same area, but each kind of has their own flavor.
So what drew you to reporting on the Southern Indiana beat?
Well, I've done it for a long time, and I just appreciate the area. I'm from there. Before being here, like you said at the top, I worked for 6 years covering Southern Indiana for the News and Tribune. So it was pretty seamless for me to switch into this here. When I started at LPM, I covered health for a year. When the spot to cover Southern Indiana opened up, I jumped on it because I was like, this is my beat.
We're so glad you did, too. So what is it like, though, covering Southern Indiana for a Louisville-based newsroom? How do you think that crossover perspective adds to the bigger picture of our region?
Well, even though there is a bridge and a river separating us, and even though there are some people who see that as a huge gap, we're still part of the same community. But we're different, too. People live and work on either side of the bridge. They have family on either side of the bridge. The same things affect us. If a tornado comes through, a storm comes through, like we're all impacted by this. We all hear the same sirens.
Yep.
We all go to the same Bats games or whatever. We all go to the same Harvest Homecoming in New Albany. So I think covering Southern Indiana for a Louisville-based station gives an opportunity for everyone to learn more about what's happening in our region. Just not just news like for and about Southern Indiana, but to help everyone learn more about Southern Indiana too.
It's so funny when I have people visit, I tell them you can walk to Indiana and it blows their mind.
Yeah.
But that's how accessible both regions are to each other. How would you describe the civic and cultural relationship between Southern Indiana and Louisville?
Well, that's an interesting question because in some ways we're so close, but I'm thinking about like resources that we might need for programs down in Southern Indiana. We're closer to Louisville, but in many ways we might need to rely on Indianapolis for that funding, maybe depending on what it is. Some other services, I mean, there might be people in the unhoused community that could be from either area. They could maybe get resources in different areas.
Yeah, resource kind of sharing in different parts of the region.
Uh-huh.
Do you think it's still, I mean, you kind of addressed this just now. It's like for those who, don't go back and forth between the two regions that are so close together, why do you think it's still important to pay attention to what's going on in our neighboring state?
In Southern Indiana?
Yeah, both ways, really.
Oh, yeah, because we're all part of the same area. I mean, like I said, we have friends and family that live in the other areas. We're in two different states, but we're closer than other things around us, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. And like you were talking about, like the civic and cultural relationship, it's about having family on other sides, friends on other sides, but also resources to help our neighbor and take care of each other. I mean, I think a good example, you and I talked about this briefly before at the floods, like that happened on both sides. And I felt like, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I felt like I saw both regions helping each other out just across the river of each other to like help restore these areas. And there's camaraderie there.
Definitely. And I don't know, when I talked about the unhoused population possibly crossing the bridge for resources, I don't know that that's a good example of what could happen. There are some cases where people here may be able to get resources from Louisville, but in many cases we need to rely on Indianapolis for our funding as a state.
Okay. Well, April, before I let you go, how can listeners keep up with your work and more developments in the Southern Indiana region?
Well, you can follow me at lpm.org just for all kinds of things Southern Indiana. And please email me at Aprile Rickert at lpm.org if you have any suggestions.
April, thank you so much for joining us today on Track.
Thank you very much.
Aprile Rickert is LPM Southern Indiana reporter. She's from New Albany and previously worked as a senior reporter at the News and Tribune. April's been covering Southern Indiana news for LPM since 2022. On Track is a production of Louisville Public Media. The On Track production team includes Michelle Tyreen Johnson, Alex Biscardi, and Laura Ellis. Our music is by Kojin Toshiro. If you're just tuning in and you want to hear the full show, you can find it now at LouisvilleOnTrack.org or in your favorite podcast app. And let's continue the conversation. Is there something you want to hear about, something that matters to your Kentuckiana experience? Let us know by sending us a text or giving us a call at 502-814-TALK or send an email to ontrack@lpm.org. I'm Aisha Jaffer, and remember, even though the river divides, it's news that bridges both sides. Until next time, you're on Track with Louisville Public Media.
Welcome to It Takes Energy, presented by Energy Transfer, where we talk all things oil and natural gas. Oil and gas drive our economy, ensure our country's security, and open pathways to brighter futures. When it comes to meeting the world's energy needs, more is better. What we mean is our world needs a wide range of energy sources to meet our increasing needs. Just wind or solar won't get us there, as the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow. With our growing population and the increasing use of energy-demanding technologies like AI, reliability is key, and the reliability of natural gas is unmatched by wind and solar. That doesn't mean we all can't work together, but natural gas is vital to ensuring we meet our energy needs. Look around, and you'll see the essential role oil and gas plays in our lives. Our world needs oil and gas, and people rely on us to deliver it. To learn more, visit energytransfer.com.